My mom chose her husband over me, then asked for mortgage help 10 years later. She regrets it now. My name's Casey, I'm 25, and if there's a prize for the most epic life crash, I'd win it hands down. It all started 10 years ago when I was 15, a mouthy, opinionated teenager with a serious allergy to authority. My mom, Jessica, now 46, tolerated me on her best days. But then Carl showed up, and suddenly, I was public enemy number one. Carl, 38 back then, swaggered into our lives like some discount Prince Charming. Except instead of a white horse, he came with a bad comb-over and a personality that screamed control freak. Within months of dating my mom, he moved in, planted himself on the couch, and declared himself the head of the household. First order of business? Declaring me a bad influence. Yeah, because a 15-year-old who just wanted to survive high school was somehow ruining his fragile ego. Jessica? She was totally on board with his nonsense. "Casey, you're so disrespectful," she'd say, her voice dripping with disappointment. "Carl's trying to build a home for us, and you're making it impossible." Oh, my bad. I didn't realize my existence was such a burden. Should I have apologized for breathing too loudly in his direction? The breaking point came one night when Carl decided I should start calling him Dad. Excuse me? Dad? This man who didn't know the difference between sarcasm and genuine respect? I laughed in his face. Not my best move, I'll admit, but the guy deserved it. Mom wasn't amused. "You're impossible," she shouted, tears of frustration streaming down her face. And just like that, she made her decision. Carl or me. Spoiler, it wasn't me. She handed me a garbage bag, yes, an actual garbage bag, for my stuff uff, drove me to Aunt Sharon's house, and told me to figure things out. "Casey," she said, trying to sound wise or whatever, "one day, you'll understand why I had to do this." Spoiler alert, I never did. So there I was, sitting on my aunt's porch with a trash bag full of my life and zero dignity. Carl got his perfect little kingdom, Jessica got her drama-free home, and I got a crash course in how much family can suck. Looking back, I'd say that was the moment I stopped believing in fairy tales. Life wasn't some Disney movie where everyone lives happily ever after. Nope. In real life, sometimes your mom picks a loser over you and expects you to be okay with it. But here's the thing. They kicked me out, sure, but they didn't get rid of me. Not really. Turns out, karma has a funny way of making house calls. Living with Aunt Sharon wasn't just not a dream. It was a crash course in survival. Picture this. A woman who could make a Navy SEAL cry with her glare, armed with a laminated list of house rules that made Alcatraz look like summer camp. No phones at the table. Be in bed by 10. And my personal favorite, no talking back. Seriously, the woman ran her house like she was one bad day away from turning it into a boot camp. But hey, at least she let me stay, which was more than I could say for Jessica. So there I was, a 15-year-old exile with a lot of attitude and nowhere to put it. I got a part-time job bussing tables at a diner that smelled like burnt coffee and regret, dodged weirdos who thought it was okay to call me sweetheart, and perfected my poker face for those awkward "so, what do your parents do?" conversations. Spoiler, I didn't tell anyone about Mom or Carl. Meanwhile, back in Jessica's world, life was thriving, or at least that's what her Facebook said. Tropical vacations with Carl sipping margaritas like they were auditioning for a Sandals resort commercial. Anniversary dinners with captions like, "Love always wins." And the worst? Carl's motivational quotes. Stuff like, "Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. Right, Carl? Loyalty. Tell me more about that from the house you kicked me out of." Every post was like a slap in the face. Not that she cared. No calls, no texts. Not even a happy birthday, Casey. It was like I'd been edited out of the movie of her life. But here's the thing about being erased. It doesn't mean you're gone. It just means you're waiting for the right moment to rewrite the script. I kept my head down, worked my shifts, and saved every penny. Aunt Sharon had her rules, but at least she didn't pretend to be someone she wasn't. If she was mad at me, she said it. If she thought I was slacking off, she made sure I knew. Brutal? Sure, but honest. Jessica, though, she was living her best fake life while pretending I didn't exist. And every cheesy photo, every smug post, every "look how perfect we are" moment just fueled the fire. Because here's the thing. While Jessica and Carl were busy playing house, I was out here learning how to play the long game. And trust me, I was just getting started. Fast forward 10 years, and I'm 27 doing my best impression of a functioning adult. I've got a job that pays just enough to keep the lights on in my shoebox apartment, and a take-no-crap attitude that I earned the hard way. Life's not glamorous, but it's mine, and that's more than I can say for Jessica and Carl's drama. Or so I thought. It's a random Tuesday, and I'm sitting on my couch, eating ramen straight out of the pot because dishes are overrated, when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Now, normally I'd let that go to voicemail, scammers or worse, recruiters, but for some reason, I pick up. Casey, it's Mom. Her voice is weirdly cheerful, like she's calling to tell me about a sale at Target, not to reconnect after ghosting me for a decade. Before I can hang up, she rushes in with the bombshell. We're in trouble. We need your help. Now, when someone says we after ignoring you for 10 years, it's not a family reunion, it's a trap. Turns out Carl's big entrepreneurial empire, Reed selling overpriced vitamin gummies to desperate soccer moms, went up in flames. Bankruptcy, debt collectors, foreclosure, the whole ugly package. We're going to lose the house, Jessica says, her voice cracking like she's auditioning for a soap opera. I laugh. Not a polite chuckle, but a loud, unapologetic laugh. The kind that says, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." "Casey, this isn't funny," she snaps, her fake cheeriness replaced with irritation. "No, it's hilarious," I reply, wiping a tear from my eye. "You picked Carl, remember? This is his loyalty over blood moment, right? Where is he?" There's an awkward silence, which tells me everything I need to know. Carl's probably hiding in a basement somewhere, pretending this isn't his fault. Typical. "Look," she says, her tone switching to pleading. "I know we haven't talked, but we're still family. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious." Family. That word lands like a slap. The same family that tossed me out like I was the problem. Now they want my help because their perfect little life isn't so perfect anymore. I let the silence drag out long enough for her to squirm. "Casey, please," she whispers. And here's the thing. 10 years ago, this would have gutted me. I would have bent over backward to hear her say she needed me. But now, I'm just thinking about how satisfying it is to watch karma in action. "I'll think about it," I say finally, knowing full well I'm not rushing to save them. Sometimes, the universe just gives you front row seats to a show you didn't even know you needed. Jessica's desperation is honestly kind of funny. She's all teary-eyed, rambling about how family needs to stick together and how much they've missed me. Oh, really? Family? The same family that tossed me out like I was last week's spoiled takeout? Spare me the Hallmark speech. But instead of slamming the door in her face, tempting as it is, I decide to play along. "Sure, Mom," I say, smiling like I'm not planning my revenge. "Let's meet and talk about it." She practically lights up, probably thinking her Oscar-worthy guilt trip worked. We pick a coffee shop downtown, the kind where everything's overpriced and the Wi-Fi barely works. I get there first, grab a seat in the corner, and wait. She walks in a few minutes later, looking rough. Stress and bad Botox are not a winning combo, but hey, I guess foreclosure will do that to you. And right behind her is Carl, still oozing smugness like it's cologne, except now he's got a receding hairline and a suit that screams clearance rack. Jessica launches right into their sob story before the coffee's even ordered. "Casey," she starts, her voice all dramatic and quivery, "we've lost everything. Carl's business failed, the mortgage is overdue, and the bank is threatening to take the house." Carl chimes in with his usual charm. "We just need a little help, Casey. You're doing well now, right? It's time for the family to come together." Oh, I could barely contain my laughter. All I hear is the sound of karma knocking at their door, and trust me, it's not being polite about it. But I nod, keeping my face as neutral as possible. "Wow," I say, stirring my latte like this isn't the most entertaining thing I've heard all year. "That sounds rough." Jessica leans in, her voice dropping to a whisper like she's sharing some big secret. "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. We need you, Casey. We're still family." There's that word again, family. It almost feels like a joke at this point. Carl gives me this look, like he expects me to pull out a checkbook and start writing zeros. Yeah, not happening. Instead, I lean back in my chair and sip my coffee, letting the silence stretch just enough to make them squirm. "Well," I say finally, "I'll think about it." Jessica looks relieved, like she just won the lottery. Carl gives me a tight-lipped smile, clearly not thrilled about needing my help. The power shift is delicious, and I'm savoring every second of it. Because here's the thing. They think they're in control, but the truth is, I've been playing this game way longer than they have. And right now, I'm winning. I tell them I'll think about it, even patting Jessica on the back while she fake sobs on my shoulder. Honestly, her tears are more theatrical than heartfelt, like she's auditioning for a soap opera. "We really need you, Casey," she sniffles. "Sure, Mom. You've been needing me for about 5 minutes, right after Carl's empire of overpriced protein shakes went belly up. Over the next week, I keep them on the hook. Every call from Jessica is a masterpiece of desperation." "Have you thought about it?" she'd ask in that shaky voice, and I'd reply with, "Still weighing my options," like I was deciding on a Netflix movie, not their financial survival. Meanwhile, I'm doing some digging. It doesn't take long to find out Carl's failure isn't as innocent as they made it sound. Turns out Mr. Family is about loyalty has been skimming cash off his own failing business for years, funneling it into some shady side gigs. Oh, and here's the kicker. He's got a secret stash of money Jessica has no idea about. Talk about a plot twist. At this point, I'm not just annoyed, I'm entertained. Carl had the audacity to call me a bad influence, and now he's out here living like a second-rate con artist. So I figure, why not play the game on my terms? When Jessica calls again, practically begging, I sweeten my tone just enough to sound convincing. "Okay, I'll help," I say, and the relief in her voice is almost comical. "But there's one little thing." "Anything," she says, probably imagining me riding in like some knight in shining armor. "Carl needs to sign over his rights to the savings account," I say, keeping my voice sugar sweet. "It's just a formality, of course. Makes it easier to transfer the money." There's a pause, and I can practically hear Carl bristling on the other end of the line. "Why would that be necessary?" he asks, his voice all tight and defensive. "Oh, it's no big deal," I say, keeping my tone as casual as if we're discussing the weather. "Just some legal stuff to make sure the bank doesn't give us any trouble. You know how it is." Jessica immediately agrees, probably because she's too desperate to care. Carl? He's suspicious, but he doesn't push back too hard. Guess the thought of losing the house has him feeling cooperative. As I hang up the phone, I can't help but grin. They think they're running this show? But really, I'm the one holding all the cards. And let me tell you, I'm about to deal them a hand they'll never forget. The big day finally arrives. The day Carl and Jessica think I'm swooping in to save the day like some budget superhero. Spoiler, I'm not. I roll up to their house and it's just as miserable as I remember. Cheap lawn ornaments, peeling paint, and that faint smell of desperation clinging to the air. Jessica meets me at the door with a smile so wide it looks painful. "Casey, come in," she chirps, like we're besties who have coffee dates every week. She's overly nice, practically radiating gratitude. It's almost cute, really. Carl's in the corner, grumpy as ever, but too broke to complain. He gives me a tight-lipped nod, like he knows I'm the one calling the shots now. We sit at the dining table, and Jessica pulls out the paperwork. Forms, contracts, all that official-looking stuff. "Thank you so much for doing this," she gushes, her hands practically trembling as she shuffles through the papers. Carl stays quiet, his eyes darting between me and the documents. "Of course," I say, plastering on my best fake smile. "Anything for family." I watch them relax, thinking they've got this in the bag. Then I casually reach into my bag and pull out a folder. "What's that?" Jessica asks, her voice laced with cautious curiosity. "Oh, just some receipts," I reply, sliding the folder across the table. Jessica opens it, and her face freezes. "What is this?" she asks, her voice suddenly shaky. "Well," I say, leaning back in my chair like this is the most entertaining thing I've done all week, "it's proof that your loving husband here has been skimming money off his failed business for years. And, oh look, he's been stashing it in a secret account. Guess he wasn't planning to save the house after all." Jessica looks at me, then at Carl, then back at me. The color drains from her face like someone pulled the plug. Carl's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. "Jessica, I can explain," he starts, but I cut him off. "Oh, please," I say, waving him off like a bad waiter. Explain what? How you've been hoarding cash while begging me to bail you out? Or how you were planning to skip town once the bank took the house? Jessica stares at Carl, her expression a mix of shock and fury. Is this true? She demands, her voice rising. Carl stammers, but it's too late. The damage is done, and Jessica's no longer looking at him like her knight in shining armor. I stand up, grab my coat, and head for the door. Good luck with the mortgage, I say, throwing them one last grin. Oh, and Carl might want to use some of that secret cash to get a better suit. And just like that, I'm out. Checkmate. Jessica absolutely snaps. And let me tell you, it's like front row seats to a live-action soap opera. She starts screaming at Carl, her voice reaching a pitch that could shatter glass. You ruined everything! She shrieks, her face contorted with fury. And honestly, for the first time in a decade, I find myself agreeing with her. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no, Jessica's just getting started. She grabs the nearest thing, a coffee mug, and chucks it at Carl's head. He ducks, barely avoiding becoming the next world's dumbest husband headline. Next up, a lamp. It crashes into the wall, sending pieces of cheap ceramic everywhere. Carl raises his hands like he's surrendering to the cops. Jessica, calm down. Let's talk about this. Talk? She screeches, grabbing a picture frame of their wedding and hurling it with Olympic-level precision. The frame smashes into the floor, scattering glass and a photo of them smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. You lied to me. You've been lying this whole time. Carl stammers, trying to explain himself, but he's no match for the sheer force of her rage. His excuses are as pathetic as his receding hairline, and Jessica's not buying a single word. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold like it's the season finale of my favorite show. Honestly, it's hard not to enjoy the spectacle. They wanted me here, didn't they? Well, now they've got my full, undivided attention. Jessica turns to me mid-rampage, her eyes wild. Did you know about this? She demands. I shrug, totally unbothered. I had my suspicions, I say casually. Turns out I was right. Shocker. She lets out a scream of frustration and turns back to Carl, who's now trying to inch his way out of the room like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. Don't you dare walk away! She yells, grabbing another random object, a vase this time, and chucking it at him. It misses, but the message is clear. Carl's life is officially over. And me, I've had my fun. I calmly grab my coat, taking one last look at the chaos. Jessica's still shouting, Carl's still flailing, and the house looks like a tornado hit it. Perfect. Good luck with the mortgage, I say on my way out, throwing them a smirk over my shoulder. Jessica doesn't even hear me. She's too busy tearing Carl a new one. Carl glances at me, his eyes pleading for some kind of help, but I just laugh and shut the door behind me. As I walk to my car, I can't help but think, sometimes the best revenge is just sitting back and letting people destroy themselves. A few weeks later, Aunt Sharon casually drops the juiciest update over breakfast. Jessica filed for divorce. The house, gone, straight to us, into foreclosure. And Carl, poof, disappeared like a bad magician, probably off to scam his next victim with promises of financial freedom or some other nonsense. Honestly, it's the kind of plot twist that writes itself. Jessica, of course, tried calling me again. I didn't even hesitate before blocking her. Like, what was she going to say? Casey, I've made a huge mistake. Too little, too late, Mom. She made her choice a decade ago when she picked Carl over her own kid. She bet on the wrong horse, and now she's left holding the reins of a disaster. Do I feel bad about it? Nope, not even a little. And before you start thinking I'm heartless, let's be real, this was all her doing. She built her perfect life on a foundation of denial and bad decisions. And when it all came crashing down, she thought I'd waltz in to save the day. Sorry, but I'm not the same scared teenager she tossed aside. Here's the thing. I didn't have to lift a finger. Karma handled everything for me. And let me tell you, sometimes karma doesn't just knock. It kicks the door down, flips the table, and pours itself a drink while it watches the chaos unfold. So, while Jessica picks up the pieces of her shattered life, I'm moving forward. No baggage, no guilt, and definitely no calls from her popping up on my phone. Clean break. And honestly, it feels amazing.